First, I'm going to start off this presentation by talking about artificial intelligence, what it can do now, and what we predict it will be able to do in the near future. Artificial intelligence is a term that can be used to refer to a range of applications. Artificial intelligence is usually described as a machine that has the ability to simulate human intelligence. Today, machine learning, neural networks, and deep learning all utilize techniques based on artificial intelligence. Machine learning uses artificial intelligence techniques to learn from experience and adapt. An example of products available on the market today that utilize this include self-driving cars and autonomous vehicles. Neural networks are designed using AI to mimic connections to the human brain, so that it is capable of learning over time. A well-known product that utilizes neural network AI technology is Apple's voice-activated Siri, the Home Assistant. Deep learning is supposedly the future generation of artificial intelligence in the sense that computers will be able to teach themselves. Today, AI is already being used to replace humans in jobs where tasks are more repetitive and can be programmed, such as manual labor jobs. Examples could be factory workers, chefs, cleaners. In Japan, robots have already been used in these environments. The Japanese do not portray them as job-stealing robots as we do, but they embrace them as they have done for a long time. Now I'm going to talk briefly about some of the AI technologies that aren't available right now, but they will be in the near future. Hiroshi Ishikawa is famous for his research on human-like robots at Osaka University in Japan. He's well known for his android called Geminoid, which is a clone or twin version of himself in appearance. Hiroshi said that it's not Japan that will have these robots in the future, but the whole world. Ken Matsui, the CEO of Mirror Robotics, also says that Japan is quite a domestic-oriented country and they don't accept many immigrants, so robots are more suitable, preferring automation to immigration. At the moment, AI is restricted access to computing resources at a cost a lot of money, which is why only a handful of companies can afford artificial intelligence development. GPUs have now evolved to the point where they are sufficient for mining cryptocurrencies using data mining algorithms at home, accessible to anybody. AI utilizes GPUs for its algorithms because they can calculate and perform tasks much faster than a traditional processor. Although AI chips exist, if big data and AI algorithms are being developed faster than the hardware is capable to deliver, then it is just a case of waiting for the advancement in computing resources as the current trend predicts. IBM is also stating that it will be possible for them to build quantum computers with 50 to 100 qubits in the next decade. For comparison, the 50-bit qubit quantum computer works faster than today's best specified 500 supercomputers. Surely, if this statement is true, this will unlock a great deal of potential for big data and AI algorithms of the future, or ones that already exist. The general consensus is that the improvement of AI in the future will make our intelligence systems more intelligent, thus enabling them to be more productive and efficient than the technology that we know today. Smartphones, for example, have been integrated into our everyday lives. The majority of us use smartphones as an augmentation, as a necessity to everyday living. Some people cannot live without it. You rely on the AI assistant for navigation when driving, alarms for appointment, cooking, etc. People do use it for various tasks to make their day-to-day lives easier. What will the future generations of AI assistants look like as they gain more traction, more advancements in hardware and capabilities? Artificial intelligence has had an impact on more than one area or industry. Artificial intelligence has social, ethical, political, legal, environment, economic, and demographic issues. Let's start by comparing the positive and negative impact that AI has had on society thus far, and ask ourselves, will this change in the future? What is the outlook of AI in society today compared to that of the future? I want to start by watching the first couple of seconds of this video demonstrating Boston Dynamics' current work on robotics, and it focuses on a TED Talk conference presented by Christine Fox on the ethical dilemmas that society faces with autonomous technology. Christine previously worked in the US military as the assistant director for policy and analysis of the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Lab. Before working there, she was the acting Deputy Secretary of Defense. Before the talk starts, a video is played, which is the video I will play now, which demonstrates two robots which look like they resemble some sort of four-legged animal. This was done so Christine, the presenter, could reflect on how the video makes us feel, which is what I will do now. She described most people's reactions in 3 stages. Stage 1, wow, that's cool, that's amazing. And then when the individuals start kicking the robots halfway through the video, that's stage 2, because it makes most people feel uncomfortable, as if to say it's not right. Stage 3 is when you see the robots climbing over the hill towards the end. And you think that these robots look a little bit creepy. How would you react to encountering one of these out in the wild? And she was controlling it. She made a few interesting points, but then she explained how there is a lack of policy regarding the development of these technologies and autonomous machines on the consumer market. Next, I want to talk about 3 key points that leading expert on artificial intelligence, Kate Crawford, brings up during her interview with the artist and researcher Trevor Pagan regarding the use of AI and how it affects society and the implications that it imposes today. She brought up a point about the way in which deep learning algorithms use data sets to calculate patterns, but they are not good at providing context for those patterns or interpreting it. It's entirely dependent on the programming and how these patterns are interpreted. She highlights the point that we should be thinking about this when we implement AI into our social and security systems. The fact that the context is provided by the person or the individual or organization that develops the artificial intelligence. Kate highlights a lot of topics during the interview, which I'll be focusing on 3 key points that I believe are the most important. The first one being that there is a chain of 6 to 8 big companies with major investments into artificial intelligence. These companies shape how AI will look inside social and healthcare systems throughout the world. This resonates well with the previous TED Talk with Christine Fox on ethical concerns with autonomous technology, and when she was comparing the policies used for military and government AI and autonomous systems with those or not being used by big AI corporations. She seems concerned about how AI is being implemented into the criminal justice system. So here's an example of how AI needs context is programmed by the individual or company. She references the work of 5 journalists at the company Northpoint who worked out over 14 months to create a system that would predict the likelihood of a criminal defendant being a repeat offender in the future on a scale of 1 to 10. This software reported black defendants with a false positive rate of twice that of white defendants. The failure rates were very clear and there was a lot of media attention. The point Kate then goes on to make is that we still don't know why this happened, because Northpoint themselves don't know why this happened, and they won't release their data as it is proprietary, as with all the big AI data corporations. This is pretty scary because this was a system being deployed to judges in America in US courtrooms to make key decisions. There's no policy governing how AI is developed or used outside of the government and US military, as Christine Fox had already pointed out in the previous TED Talk. So this is quite scary. This is the impact of artificial intelligence today. Are these implications going to scale with the implementation of AI in our day-to-day lives and get progressively worse? It is concerning that the future of AI is being determined by several big data corporations, all of which are wealthy, do not have to adhere to governing policy on the development of AI and do not distribute their data for anybody to see what they're doing. Should we be concerned about this? Several experts in legal and AI research, including names from the big AI companies that are shaping what AI looks like today, attended a seminar to talk about the analysis of the impact that AI has had thus far on the legal sector and what it may look like in the future. The seminar is an hour and a half long, but I'll be covering the main topics that were brought up. Lawyers have so much potential for finding information faster and more reliably with the aid of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is particularly good at recognizing patterns, as we already know. This is especially helpful as the legal research process is often an extensive and inefficient process that could be augmented with the use of artificial intelligence. Using artificial intelligence as an augmentation, natural language processing is a core pillar of artificial intelligence systems, which is concerned with the interaction with computers, their languages, humans, and our natural languages. This is essentially programming computers with natural language data so they can interpret us and what we are saying. The concept has been around since the 1950s, but what shaped it is the advancement in power performance in computer hardware. This has enabled us to use data algorithms that wasn't previously possible. If this trend of cheaper and more powerful hardware continues, what kind of data algorithms will exist for natural language processing 10 years from now? Thomas J. Hamilton works at Ross Intelligence, and he described this by saying, specific data algorithms that were flushed out originally could never really be tested until the arrival of real computing power and big data. Technology today plays a large role in politics. Think about fake news and the spread of misinformation. A good example of what I'm talking about is a map of misinformation shared on COVID-19 on social media. The Centre for Technology and Global Affairs at Oxford University is currently doing a lot of research on the impact that AI and technology in general is having from a political viewpoint. The United States of America and Russia have already demonstrated how it can influence politics through elections. When the Russian government interfered with the 2016 US presidential election with the intent of sabotaging Hillary Clinton by order of Vladimir Putin. One major concern that the Centre of Oxford University have expressed is what the future job market looks like as automation continues to automate a large amount of manual labour jobs. The unemployment rate could rise to as high as 60% once automation becomes the standard. What would these unemployed people do? Will they transfer their skills to a new career? Will there be some sort of income that everyone is entitled to? Would this work in reality?
In this section, I will be discussing the wider impact of AI on the economy. This section addresses questions such as how will AI impact the economy in the future? Will AI grow or shrink the economy, and how will AI influence the interest rate? So how is AI forecasted to affect the economy, and when can we expect to see the effects, and how will it impact companies? To put into perspective the level of impact AI is expected to have, in 2016 the global GDP was recorded to be worth approximately 75 trillion. By 2030 this figure is expected to sit at approximately 129.7 trillion, which is a substantial increase. The impact of AI on the economy is expected to be felt gradually rather than immediately. This is expected as it takes time for industries to transition from human labour to robot automation. Whilst not all companies are expected to adopt AI initially, research suggests that companies who do choose to adopt AI will essentially double their cash flow and leave a huge performance gap between them and rival competitors. Worldwide, economies are expected to prosper from the use of AI. So how will AI help grow the economy? What is the British government's approach to AI investment, and how does this compare to other countries? As the majority of firms move towards augmented tasks and roles, we will see an overall increase in productivity growth, leading to a rise in GDP. The British government have promised to provide an extra 300 million in AI investment as part of their 1 billion AI sector deal. Based on these findings, we can expect the UK to be at the forefront of AI in the coming years. The UK currently sits third in the world for AI investment, behind the US and China at 825.85 million. But exactly how much is the economy expected to grow in the next 10 years? By 2030, research shows we can expect to see the British GDP grow by an estimated 10.4% as a direct result of AI implementation across industries in the UK. Advancements in consumer products will have a large impact and are expected to contribute approximately 8.4% of that growth. These findings, along with the intention of the British government in the previous slide, suggest the UK could be at the forefront of AI technology within the next 10 years, leading to the UK economy growing substantially as a result. Other countries are also expected to see a positive impact on their economy, depending on how much their country has invested in AI. What sectors will contribute the most towards the economy, and how will profitability rates be impacted? Research shows the top 5 industries that will benefit the most from AI, in order, is information and communication, manufacturing, financial services, retail, and transportation, such as truck driving. Profitability rates on average, are expected to increase by at least 38% in these sectors, highlighting the positive impact AI will have on a wide range of industries. These increases in profit are expected to add a total of 15 trillion to 12 economies across 16 industries worldwide. How will the interest rate and inflation be affected? The UK's interest rate currently sits at 0.1%. The assumption of delegates at the World Economic Forum's annual meeting in Switzerland was, if robots rise, interest rates will fall, suggesting the rise in automation will lead to low interest rates. This is further expected as a leading policymaker from the Bank of England has forecast low interest rates for at least another 20 years. As a result, the economy is expected to grow and inflation increase with it, resulting in more people having disposable money to spend.
Just going to interject here for 2 seconds to mention something that, at the very least, I didn't know until researching for this assessment. The creation of a neural network AI can produce up to £626,000 worth of carbon dioxide, equivalent to that of nearly 5 times the lifetime emissions of the average American car, including the manufacture of that car itself. I figured that was worth mentioning just as a quick side note.
What is the Internet of Things? The Internet of Things is the umbrella term for anything that connects to the Internet. It is made up of devices that connect to the Internet and share data with each other. IoT devices include not only computers, laptops and smartphones, but also objects that have been equipped with chips to gather and communicate data over a network. Every single day, it is estimated that the Internet of Things produces between 2.5 and 5 quintillion bytes of data. It's estimated that by 2025, there will be 41.6 billion devices connected to the Internet, and they are expected to generate between 79.4 zettabytes and 500 zettabytes of data. A zettabyte is 1 trillion gigabytes. AI techniques are needed to process all the data. AI techniques such as machine learning, NLP, natural language processing, voice audio recognition, computer vision/image recognition, search, routing, autonomous robots, autonomous transport are all necessary to process the big data. AI is used to detect anomalies or outliers, predict outcomes, recognize patterns, detect missing values, and normalize data. Some example applications of IoT. Household appliances, for example a fridge, can allow users to scan and shop items using barcodes and maintain information about stock, and then alert the home residents when stocks are low, for example if a household needs to buy milk. Robotic automated vacuum cleaners will help in the home. Healthcare. Remote monitoring of patients is achievable with wearables/implants, monitoring heart rate, temperature, blood sugar state, sleep patterns, and movement monitoring. In agriculture, Internet of Things can be used to keep track of locations of their cattle and monitor animals' health conditions, crop counting, and early detection of plant diseases using images of leaves. Some more applications. In education, there will be automated attendance and grade monitoring and result tracking. In retail, there will be inventory tracking, storage condition monitoring, product tracking, and customer analytics. Finally, disadvantages and limitations of the Internet of Things. The main issues are security and privacy. More IoT devices means more vectors for attack. IoT could lead to technology over-reliance. The more untrusted and focused on the Internet, the more potential there will be for harm. Safety could become an issue, especially with prescriptions and biomedical technology. Compatibility issues could arise between different devices and network technologies. Compatibility issues may result in people buying appliances from a certain manufacturer, leading to its monopoly of the market. Internet of Things, especially when combined with robotics, increases automation, which could lead to unemployment and job loss. In general, the Internet of Things enhances communication, efficiency and transparency, and saves time, money and effort. The Internet of Things and robotics allows increased automation and control and boosts Industry 4.0. Augmented reality provides new and novel ways to see or experience Internet of Things data.
The way that 4G networking interfaces with our devices is not perfect because the signal fluctuates heavily and there are throttle speeds to prevent network congestion and not everywhere receives a 4G or even a 3G signal. 5G networking aims to solve these problems. On average, the speeds from 5G enabled devices in the UK already have a throughput of 150 to 250 megabits per second, which equates to 80 megabytes per second to 31 megabytes per second. One of the GSMA specifications of 5G is that there is a latency of no more than 1 second, although at the moment, due to the current infrastructure in the UK, this is down to 30 to 40 milliseconds, because the infrastructure does not yet exist. Currently, only EE, O2 and 3 and Vodafone possess the spectrum for 5G application. The spectrum uses a much higher frequency than its predecessors, 3G or 4G, and utilizes multiple input, multiple output, also known as MIMO, which transmits and receives more data signals at once. This is basically the antenna to the towers that will replace the 4G mast towers. They are much bigger and have much more data capacity and throughput. 5G will utilize smaller scale deployments as opposed to a smaller amount of larger masts found in a 4G network. The 5G coverage specification is aimed to eventually cover 100% of Britain, allowing for immediate access from anywhere without losing signal, as we currently do with the 4G network. The attitude towards 5G technology in society is somewhat mixed, as many skeptics claiming that the development of 5G causes the spread of the COVID-19 virus. Many variations of the story exist, stating that the development of 5G was in some way hazardous to the human population, all of which has been disproved by a paper submitted by Ofcom, featuring scientific evidence clearing up myths surrounding 5G and the coronavirus pandemic. It's very surprising that people have taken to social media to warn others of these dangers. Once the 5G network infrastructure is in place and we are all glued to our devices more than ever, will applications such as smart meters and other devices that communicate over aging 2G and 3G networks switch to 5G, or even 4G if the implementation of 5G results in a decrease of 4G tariff costs? Once the ability to connect to a mobile data network is there, without the disruption of signal, will other emerging technologies utilize 5G networking as the core backbone infrastructure? For example, vehicles have required a sensor alerting the emergency services when the airbag is deployed since April 2018. When 5G is integrated into our day-to-day lives as 4G is today, will vehicles utilize the additional power of the 5G specification, allowing to send more information about the collision or accident over 5G, such as recordings, visual footage, etc. With the predicted arrival of self-driving cars in our day-to-day lives and electric cars, which are already commonly found on the road, it's a real possibility, especially considering that the UK government has already issued a ban on the production of fossil fuel cars being manufactured and sold in the UK after 2030, with the exception of hybrids to 2035. According to a report titled UK Strategy and Plan for 5G and Digitisation submitted to the UK government by the FCCG, it requests funding for the infrastructure and development of the 5G networking, with the emphasis on the improvement of broadband to aid the growth of local businesses and to create employment opportunities, while also providing a much more reliable service in order to deliver to the promise of the Internet of Things. Several things are apparent from the beginning of the report. The summary page on page 2, just before the FCCG's recommendations, opens up with the following statement. Although it is not fully developed, it is likely that 5G will provide revolutionary new technologies to manage a seamless evolution in network, mobile, and wireless services. This will deliver significant opportunities for new business models, enhanced lifestyles, and increased productivity. Following this is a large paragraph detailing the benefits of 5G, most of which we've already covered. However, at the bottom of the paragraph it says that, however, it is important to note that 5G does not yet exist. It is still in the research stages and it is in early standardization phase. It is evident that the 5G technology will not be widely available for consumers on every network. while providing significant or notable improvements over 4G in the UK until the infrastructure has been set in place. "3G and 4G have been known to have several negative effects on the birds and other wildlife ecosystems, which have some unforeseen consequences. 5G has been developed with this in mind, but it is still not completely harmless to wildlife, which we should perhaps reconsider before redeploying 5G to the whole world. The point of 5G is to allow much more traffic and bandwidth throughput at once, allowing for more and more people to connect to the network on their personal devices, which is already a leading cause of global warming, the use of energy. Surely with the arrival of 5G, this will only increase. Regarding the 5 technologies that 5G interacts with to implement the infrastructure, they are too new and untested to determine how they will impact the environment. The major concerns that we already know about regarding these 5 technologies are the implementation of small cells and millimeter waves technology utilized by MIMO, which we covered earlier. When you consider that this will effectively enable everyone in the UK to have instant access from anywhere, which is brilliant. However, this will mean much more energy use, not just in the UK but globally, so wherever 5G is deployed. If the end result is more devices are interconnected simultaneously on a global scale, is 5G more important? Shouldn't we be addressing the issue of global warming first? Something that is an ongoing threat to the whole world, yet surprisingly very little is being done to prevent the destruction of this planet's wildlife and ecosystem. If 5G will go beyond connecting our phones to create a more permanent connection, allowing for the maturity of devices such as 5G-enabled implants, smart cities, electric or autonomous vehicles, etc., then it will improve our quality of life, introducing advances in every sector. However, having a world so well interconnected may also have political implications, specifically regarding how well our data is utilized. It's a well-known fact that our end-user data and information systems are often sold on to the highest bidder by individuals inside organizations with malicious intent. A good example of this would be cold callers, which are often the result of an individual who has sold your phone number, possibly among other personal information such as your name and address. This is an ongoing issue today with many companies. Once the world is interconnected and big data, AI and 5G are all being utilized together to process more information than ever, will the problem of illegally distributed data increase with the demand? The GDPR legislation was a step in the right direction, but in a world so interconnected, there probably will be some kind of legislation put in place further restricting the way that our data is harvested or utilized, or perhaps how the 5G network itself is utilized. There's also geopolitics. A third world country where so much of the population have internet access in a world so connected together by 5G could have some unforeseen consequences. The US National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien stated that we have evidence that Hawaii have the capability secretly to access sensitive and personal information in its IT systems it maintains and sells around the world, which is another example of one of many companies using our data for malicious purposes. There was a court battle that lasted a year between the United States of America and the Chinese government over Hawaii. Donald Trump accused Hawaii of building backdoors into their 5G network equipment, which is concerning, considering the Chinese 5G infrastructure is responsible for 40% of the world's 5G infrastructure. There is currently no reinforced regulations on how data or future networks are used as of yet. The GDPR was a step in the right direction, but it's likely going to be evolved again, or regulations will be introduced in the future, further defining how our data can be harvested, collected, and utilized. Ofcom launched a consultation on its 10-year spectrum management strategy for the next decade regarding 5G. It supports the innovation, local and national services, as well as the widespread sharing of the spectrum in order to ensure efficient use and widespread coverage. Ofcom is making the spectrum available early for those wishing to encourage and support new technologies. In July 2020, the UK government announced that it would bring the European Electronic Communications Code into UK law, with the emphasis being on network forecasting, focusing on gigabit bandwidth, promoting competition in rural areas, overhauling the internet service provider switching process for end users, and increased regulations on bundled contracts. The target demographic for the 5G network is essentially everyone. The majority of people are reliant on mobile data networks are of the younger generation. However, 5G means much more than just connectivity of smartphones. It could potentially mean the integration of 5G into electric and autonomous vehicles, medical implants, smart cities, and etc. Theoretically, the network will exist for everyone to benefit, not just young people, improving our quality of life in all sectors.
So, now we come to my personal favourite topic, robots. Specifically, what is the difference between a robot and a robot? Or, more accurately, the difference between a robot and an AI. So, while a robot is usually a physical form, a AI would be a computer program with a specific function in mind, quite often in control of a robot, creating artificially intelligent robots, or both robots and AI. It may be a bit confusing, but to try and put it into a bit more context, the robot is the physical body, whereas the AI would be the brain behind it, the thought. As a pop culture reference, an easy example would be from the Terminator films, where you have the T-1000 and the whatever the evil one is for whichever film you want to pick from, where that is a robot with an AI behind it, whilst Skynet is just an AI, and a lot of the drones from that film would just be considered robots. So it poses the question, if something goes wrong with an artificially intelligent robot, is it the robot or the AI's fault? So if you look at the slide, in the top left there is a news article from a security robot in San Francisco that basically ran over a child. Is that the robot, the programmer, or the AI's fault legally? It's a bit of a conundrum. Apologies for my slight tangent to the end of the previous slides, which we get back on track. The point I was trying to make is that an AI and a robot are different things, but they are quite commonly used together or in tandem, and get referred to as a robot just for the sake of simplicity, because saying artificially intelligent machine every time is a pain in the ass. However, this has led to them just being referred to as robots, and has since then led to just an AI being referred to as a robot or a bot. Quite commonly in the case of an online AI, such as a bot account for an online game or social media, or something like just as simple as a chatbot, really.
Big data. Big data is a collection of data from various sources that are too large and diverse for conventional data processing applications. Big data sets are generally characterized by the 3 V's of big data, which are volume, which refers to the amount of data from various sources, velocity, the speed at which the data is created or collected, and variety, the scope of data points that are being covered. The data is then stored in a data warehouse ready to be analysed. This section will analyse the macroeconomic strengths and weaknesses of big data and its implications by following the pestle analysis framework. Politically, the UK is the world leader in big data research and has vowed to provide long-term stability in science investment, which includes big data and robotics, by increasing the funding and growing in line with inflation each year. It's also worth noting that political parties love to make use of big data, especially during election times, where they have been making use of advanced data analysis tools to help win potential voters. Economically, setting up a data warehouse is a costly task that often requires investment for storage capacity, processing power, and the initial setup. Generally, the more functionality a company desires, the higher the cost will be. However, data warehouses have the potential to return huge profits, so it is a worthwhile investment. Socially, according to the research firm Gartner, big data is forecast to create a demand for 4.4 million big data related jobs globally, with a 3.8% increase in global IT spending expected. Society can also expect more personalised shopping experiences online, with big companies like Amazon, Google and eBay all making use of big data. Technologically, the outlook on big data is changing as companies look to save costs and find more efficient ways to store their data. Every day, approximately 2.5 quintillion bytes of data are produced, and this number will only increase in the future at the current rate. As a result, many organizations are now moving towards storing big data sets on the cloud. In the past, the data analyzed has been stored structurally, which is expensive as the company needs to purchase the necessary hardware. By moving data to the cloud, organizations can save huge amounts on operational costs, processing power, and have access to instant scaling options with no immediate upfront costs. Some of the emerging technology in big data include cloud computing, software-defined storage, optical computing, smart grid computing, and bio-inspired computing. By 2030, research shows we can expect to see the British GDP grow by an estimated 10.4% as a direct result of AI implementation across industries in the UK. Advancements in consumer products will have a large impact and are expected to contribute approximately 8.4% of that growth. These findings, along with the intention of the British government in the previous slide, suggests the UK could be at the forefront of AI technology within the next 10 years, leading to the UK economy growing substantially as a result. Other countries are also expected to see a positive impact on their economy, depending on how much their country has invested in AI.
So, what does the future hold for us? At present, there is a few key contributors deciding our future and interactions with the Internet of Things. Artificial intelligence, connection or 5G, and finally, big data. Eventually, these three will evolve the Internet of Things to artificial intelligence of things. This has been described as a smart, connected network of devices that seamlessly communicates over powerful 5G networks, unleashing the power of data better and faster than ever. To predict where this technology will go, firstly, we must understand how it will be able to access information or data that was previously impossible. A study by Verdict.co.uk in 2017 showed that at the time, the average person carried around 3.5 devices on them that was connected to the Internet of Things. At time of writing in 2021, this has now grown to 10 devices. Even our simplest devices, such as a watch, can now connect wirelessly. Not only can it connect, but it can also send valuable information. This can be location, who we are near, what we are listening to on Spotify and our current mood, where we are shopping, when, and even what we are buying. With all this information accessible for artificial intelligence to learn from, our futures hold many different emotions. It is an exciting prospect, as we do not know what's going to happen next. Our minds have invented and developed many technological advances. However, with our excessive use of fossil fuels and our planet being destroyed, it can be argued we may have gone as far as we can. Handing over our designing and building of new projects to AI gives humanity a chance to develop exponentially to the current curve, to give a new perspective on the big questions. AI developed by Google owned Verily has given advances in spotting trends and patterns to spot potential health issues later in patients' life. This has been achieved by studying patient eyes for specific signs previously unfound by human examination. Finding these issues earlier has given patients a better chance of overcoming later complications or illness, and ultimately given extended life to humans, as well as reducing potential healthcare costs at a later date. It is also a time for some concern and a scary prospect. For a large scale of history of planet Earth, we have been the alpha creature of the food chain. So naturally, we are reluctant to hand control of our destiny to something that is not human. In fact, a study showed in 2017 it is estimated that 42% of Americans distrust AI. Another key consideration is if machines are taking over laborious jobs in order to be more efficient, cheaper, and accurate, it would be important to consider, will we have jobs still? A severe knock-on effect of this problem would be if we no need to work anymore, then our economy as well as the societies as they currently function will fail. Finally, we as humans have had conflict from as early as records began. We have disagreed on religion, race, borders, resources such as oil, and core principles over history. It would therefore be highly unlikely that we will unanimously agree on a direction that suits all parties with regards to AI. Therefore, it will be impossible to decide on which core beliefs artificial intelligence will follow and whose best interests it will serve. As the Internet of Things has connected us globally together, it certainly holds no regard for most borders or continents, like our old systems and beliefs had.